Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this session on how to crack SBI Clerk Exam 2021 in 40 days. So, some days back there was this notification of SBI Clerk, and they have announced more than 5,000 vacancies for the upcoming exam. I understand this is a difficult period for all of us as we are all struggling with COVID. The second wave of COVID is proving to be very deadly. But going by the last year, if you look at the exam schedule, most of the exams happened on time, especially the bank exams. Yes, there was some delay. So there is no reason to believe that the SBI clerk won't happen as scheduled. Maybe there is a delay, but that should not be an impediment into your preparation schedule. So we thought of doing this webinar mainly to focus on how you can, utilize this time to your best of advantage and try and maximize your potential in terms of cracking this exam. So the objective of today's session would essentially be looking at the pattern of SBI exam, what kind of questions are asked, and also we look at the exam pattern, what should be the right preparation plan and strategies. Right. So students, we as faculties and also people who are connected with students, we realize that these are difficult times. There is a lot of distraction in terms of the situation of COVID. And there is a lot of anxiety among people that how will this pan out. But like everything, this will also pass. So eventually, you will see that COVID, we need to keep ourselves safe. We need to be very vigilant in terms of we don't venture out, and and we should do all the COVID protocols as suggested by the government, and also which is logically to maintain the distance and wear your mask. All of these things are required, but at the same time, your preparation schedule should be such that you are gearing up for the exam. The best way to counter a lot of negativity that has come around with COVID second wave would be, in my suggestion, the best way forward would be to focus on your studies. Now, what happens is there are times you might feel demotivated in terms of exams schedule is not sure when this will happen, when that will happen. But all of these are part and parcel of the whole preparation thing. If you look at, and like last year example, I was citing COVID happened in March, April last year also. But you realize that exams like RRBPO, RRB clerical, in fact IBPS PO, IBPS clerical, all happened almost as they were scheduled. There was some delay, sure, there was some delay, but eventually students who focused during that lockdown period, first lockdown, in their preparation, in their studies, I can at least see they have done really well in the exams and have cracked the exam. People who got a kind of distracted by the whole anxious environment that was created, they could not do very well. So my suggestion going forward would always be make sure that you gear up for the exam. Exam whenever it may happen. We are very hopeful that the exam will take place in as scheduled in June, right? They will give a window, or maybe it get delayed by 10, 15 days. Whatever it happens, it will happen for everyone. So they won't pick and choose that it will happen for this and this will not happen for them. It will happen for everyone. So as aspirants, your focus should be to be preparing for any eventuality that may happen. And you have to realize once this period goes away, this COVID wave goes away, you have to realize that there would be other exams that will also be coming up, like SBIPO would come, RRBPO, RRBP clerical, then IBPSPO, IBPS clerical. Many Manipal exams are scheduled to come. There's also a talk of LIC double A that might come this time again. There are LIC exams, other insurance company exams, SSC scheduled to be done. So all of these exams would require you to be steady in your preparation. It is very easy to get distracted this time, but you have to realize that that will not pay off. Why will it not pay off? Because once you understand that uh, this situation is for everyone, it is not for you and me and for a handful of people. This is for everyone. So you should make sure that whenever this the whole wave sort of dies down and things get to a bit of normalcy retains, then you have to focus on how you can take this step forward. Now, what happens is a lot of students have come back and told me, "Sir, it is very difficult for us to focus because there is so much hue and cry what is happening in the world right now." All that will happen. What is your objective? Your objective is to go there and perform in the exam, and that will only happen once you focus what are the right practices to be done, what should be your objective in terms of working on the areas where you don't you seem to not be doing too well, and how you can look at the exam pattern and see SBI clerk exam in isolation in terms of, okay, this is what is needed to crack this exam. These are the kind of question patterns that we have seen in the last year, and how you can maximize on that potential. So essentially, it all boils down to how well versed you are with the whole uh, pattern of the paper. What is the cutoffs? What sections and subsections you need to focus upon. So our objective of this session is essentially to focus on the SBI Clerical Exam 2021. Going forward, we would also be conducting a lot of webinars on test taking strategies, as well as other exams that will come up later in the year, like RRB, PO, RRB Clerical. We would be discussing about how to approach those exams as well. And what happens is all of these exams, like if you are an aspirant or you're just starting to prepare for banking government exams, you will realize essentially there are three sections, right? In the first is the screening process. So essentially you have to focus on the aptitude. So they are not looking at people who are very intelligent. They are looking at people who are average, who have good logical skills, who have good decision making skills, and who can handle pressure to some extent. So all of these, and especially in banking exams, you would realize they are very methodical in terms of the way they conduct their paper, and also in the way they design the whole paper. So it becomes very important for you to understand what is the right frame of mind for you to get into that exam. So we will be discussing various aspects. What is the eligibility criteria for the whole exam, and what is the kind of questions that you can expect? What is the pattern of the prelims? What is the pattern of the mains exam? And how you can maximize your performance in terms of uh, focusing on these exams. Now, when you think of an SBI exam, be it clerical or be it PO, you have to realize that SBI is the leading bank in the country, and SBI being the such a big bank that a lot of competition would be there. So when you talk of competition, you have to realize that SBI tries to set a benchmark for its performers. So SBI exam, be it clerical or be it PO, both would be would invite a lot of competition. How to beat that competition, that is very important. How you can stay ahead of the race. Why? Because I know a lot of people, my students, I know a lot of my students who are maybe probationary officer in an RRB. They would be writing SBI clerical, SBI PO exam again, right? Why? Because they would want to shift to that brand. I know a lot of people who get in selected in PO, but they choose SBI clerical over PO. Why? Because SBI in itself commands a lot of respect in the society. So all of these things taken into consideration, you have to realize for yourself that this is a great opportunity, because I am sure there would be good performers before the lockdown, but the lockdown might have a negative impact on them in terms of they might lose focus, they might lose track of the whole thing. But if you can strategize yourself in a way that you can orient your preparation towards clearing this exam, I'm sure you will do, right? So if you look at the whole pattern of the government exams, it is in a way looking at potential of a student so that he or she can perform under pressure. Banking in itself is a high pressure job now. You realize how it is. Now, what happens is when you focus on these exams, you have to realize that what is the crux, what is the right strategy for you to going forward in these exams. First and foremost, you have to realize they are looking at people who can work in a sector where a lot of public dealing is involved, right? So this will, in some way enhance your personality as well. So you might be a very shy person, you might be a very introvert person, but going forward you will realize that your performance and your personality would be enhanced once you join that job, because there would be a lot of public dealing. You would have to kind of negotiate as well as manage the situation at many times. So all of these things requires in a banking job. Now, if we talk of uh, our agenda for today, what essentially we would be doing today. So yeah. So what will be the highlights of the session today? We'll look at what are we going to discuss. We will discuss about the notification, the important details in the notification. We will be discussing this notification in entirety in terms of when to apply, what is the last date to apply, and any edits you want to do. We would be looking at that. We would also be looking at the selection process and the exam pattern. See, every exam is different in its conduct, in its selection process. So we'll look at the whole selection process of SBI clerical exams, because we are focusing on that today. And we'll also look at what is the exam pattern, how the exam is conducted, in how many stages it is conducted, uh, what else is required after writing prelims and mains. All of these things we will be discussing. Also, we look at some important topics. Now this becomes very important from strategy point of view. See, we realize as faculties, and also when we interact with a lot of students, not all students are good in all the topics, and not all the topics really come in the exams, or if I may say so, some topics appear in prelims and some topics appear in mains exam. The weightage of different topics in different exams is different. So we as aspirants, you as aspirant should have a clear idea what are the important topics going forward in each of the selection stages. Once you have that idea, you can zero in down of how you can maximize your score depending on what are your strengths and weaknesses in a particular section or subsection for that matter. So we will be discussing what are the basic important topics that you need to focus upon, how you can maximize your potential in that. Then we would also be suggesting you some preparation tips and strategies. See, students, what happens is, since we come across a lot of students during when they are preparing, so in fact we also learn from the different strategies with the students take. So we would be discussing, we would be giving our uh, white paper on how to deal this with this exam, what are the right do's and the don'ts of this exam, what should be the right strategy going into the exam, and how you can really ace this exam, because like I said, this exam involves a lot of competition. So you have to have a very clear cut idea in terms of what is the right way forward for this exam. So when we talk of right preparation strategies, we need to realize that not one strategy is efficient for everyone. Everybody is different, right? So we cannot have one single strategy for everyone. It has to be customized. So at times we take a lot of pride in doing that with our students. We believe in a lot of mentorship that happens. So for example, a student comes to me and says my reasoning is poor, right, but my maths is good, my English is good. So how we tackle that situation in terms of uh, how he can maximize his potential in English and maths, and do reasonably well in reasoning, so that he gets to a good score. So we will be discussing on which topics to focus and how you can take it forward from there. Now, so there is also this talk, why do you want a career in banking? So first we need to understand a banking job is the one of the most sought after job for many reasons. There are many reasons that makes banking a very lucrative career. Now I'll list down some of the reasons. Now, First is the faster career growth. Students, what happens is once you get into this banking sphere, you would realize there is a lot of opportunity of a faster career growth because there is a lot of internal exams that happen. You can write those exams and you can move up the ladder pretty soon. So the career trajectory of your is pretty decent. So once you start your career in banking, you would realize by if you are meritorious and if you work hard, and you can clear those exams, the internal exams, you would rise up the ladder pretty soon. Then yeah, so if you join pretty early and you make all the right noises, you do your work diligently, and you are noticed for your work, every possibility to reach the top level in the hierarchy, chairman, MD, GM, whatever that hierarchy is. So there is no reason for you to believe that you cannot reach the highest level. Because banking is one where it is, see, the way the exams are conducted, it gives us a clear picture that they are very transparent and fair in their selection process. Same applies to their you know hierarchy as well. So if you are good and if you are willing to slog in good work, then probably you have every chance to reach up the top level of the hierarchy. Now, obviously, banking job commands a lot of respect in the society. Bankers are seen in good eyes. What that means is that people respect bankers because it is considered to be a job where they are doing the right thing. They are kind of giving it back to the society in terms of they are helping people out. If somebody wants for example, somebody give a very simple example. Somebody wants a loan, and you can help out that person. You command the respect in the society, right? Then job security, obviously, this is a very big reason that many students join in for banking exams. Why? Because in private job, like you see in covid times, there have been a lot of cases of people losing out on jobs. But banking is one career where there is a lot of job security. You can be rest assured that once you join government sector banks, public sector banks, you would have a lot of job security, and you don't have to worry about losing your job or being left out of job, because there is a lot of job security that comes along with banking. Obviously, you get to work in challenging work environment. So if you are somebody who relishes challenges, so this is the right career for you, because you would work in challenging work environment. You have, like I said, there is a lot of pressure. You have to deliver on time. You have to sanction loans. You have to look at all the checks and balances. So there is a lot of challenge that comes along with this job. So if you are one who likes challenges, this is the right job for you. Obviously, when you join a public sector bank or banking, so they run on the best available technology. So you get to use the best available technology in terms of IT infrastructure and everything. So this is also one aspect which might lure you into this career in banking, because they have the banking is such a high stake job that you would get to use the best available technology in the market. And then there is an opportunity for higher learning as well. So that also makes a good career. Like I said, during recession, a lot of industries have stopped recruiting. A lot of industries have laid off people, but this is one industry where there are still jobs coming out. There would be retirement that will happen. It's one of the strongest recruiting industry even during the post period of recession. So that is a very very big reason, because here you are well assured that your job won't go anywhere, and obviously this is an opportunity that will come every year. So for you to understand that this is one thing, even if you don't happen to clear, suppose, one of your exam this year, you have always opportunity to bounce back, because this is one industry will always give you a second chance to come back, right? Now, let's try and understand what is the career path of a banking executive, or I may say professional. So you start with sub staff or clerk. Then officer level, you have scale 1, scale 2, scale 3, up to scale 7 officers. So scale 1 generally is where you join as in junior management. Then you, after maybe 2 years, you move to middle management, which is called as scale 2 and scale 3. Then after some more years, if you are working diligently and you have a good track record, you move to scale 4 and scale 5 officer, and then the top level executive is scale 6 and scale 7 officer. So like they said, there is always an opportunity for a career growth, faster career growth. So this is the right opportunity for you in banking, because banking offers all of these things. So even if you join as clerk, you have every chance of moving up the ladder pretty soon and be in the officer level or the junior management or the middle management level pretty soon. Now, if you look at So career progression of clerks, how does it happen? So it's because we are talking of SBI clerk, so we need to focus on what career prospect does it offer for you. So once you join as clerk in a public sector bank or in any bank, you after 2 years of service you're promoted as a trainee officer. So you become a trainee officer. So and post that, that is a junior management grade where you call scale 1 officer, which is generally a PO post. Then you come to the middle management grade, which is manager or senior manager, which is scale 2 and scale 3. Post that you get into senior management grade, which is chief manager and AGM, which is a scale 4 and scale 5 post. And then the last is the top management grade, which is TGM or GM scale 6 and scale 7 officer. So like you see, there is a lot of career progression that happens a lot. Obviously, it will take some years of experience for you to move up the ladder. But surely, once you join as clerk, once you get into that banking domain, you have all the reason to believe that you can move up the ladder pretty soon. So you start with junior management, move to middle management, which is scale 2 and scale 3, then senior management, scale 4 and scale 5, and the top management grade, which is DGM and GM level, which is scale 6 and scale 7. Now, you can also, a general manager, suppose a general manager has completed 2 years of service, he's always eligible for a promotion as executive director of a public sector bank, which is again a top level post. So all of these really makes a very interesting argument for you to join banking industry, be as a clerk or as a PO. So you don't have to believe in that as a clerk you would take a lot of time. The important point is just focus on getting into that banking domain. Once you get into that banking domain, things will automatically start happening, and you would see how people around you, the peers along who are working you are working with, how they are writing the internal exams and moving up the ladder. Soon that energy will also rub off on you, and I think that would be a great opportunity for you to go forward into the management, junior management or middle management. Now, let's look at the kind of important dates that we were referring on the notification. Now, if you look at online registration has already started from 27th April and it will continue till 17th May. So if you haven't filled up the form and you are eligible, please go ahead and do it as soon as possible. So you can, this is the window also, you can edit or modify the application. Last date to payment of application fees and intimation charges online is okay. And download of call letters for online exams will be 1st of June as they have slated right now. Online exam is supposed to be phase 1, which is preliminary exam, is supposed to be conducted in June 2021. The date hasn't been out as of now. Then download of call letter for online main exams. So once you clear the preliminary exams, people who have cleared the exam, the screening exam, they move to the online mains exam. So that is July 19th. And online exams mains, which is phase 2, which is the second stage of the exam, that is slated to happen on 31st of July. Obviously, these are all tentative days because considering the impact of Corona and COVID, so it might happen that some days are moved further along the schedule. But more or less, you can understand and believe with all clarity that you can expect the exam to be next month. Around you have like 40, 35, 40 days. So if the everything goes well, the exam would be conducted on time. So this is the kind of schedule. The important date is 17th May, which is the last date for filling up the form. Now, if you look at the tentative vacancies which the SBI has announced this time around in SBI Clerk, so 5,000 total, 5,000 plus vacancies, including the regular and special recruitment, right? So there's a lot of vacancies, right? So you have to, and you need only one seat. You don't need two seats, right? You need only one seat. So these are vacancies which are quite a good number. You can always try and hope that you will go through. Now, what is the eligibility criteria? Now, you need to understand whether you are eligible to write this exam or not. So we'll try and look at the age criteria and the education criteria if you are eligible for the exam. Now, age limit as on 1st April 2021. So 1st April 2021 is the cutoff date which they have given. And age limit as on that date should be minimum of 20 years and maximum of 28 years. So what this essentially means is if you're writing in clerk exam, you need to be of minimum 20 years, right? If you're running 20, then probably you cannot write exam. As on 1st of April 2021, you should have completed 20 years and you should not be beyond 28 years, right? So only then you are eligible to write the exam. Now, education qualification as on 16/8/2021. This is 16th August 2021. What should your education qualification be? a degree in any discipline from a university recognized by the government of India or any equivalent qualification recognized as such by the central government. So the important aspect is degree in any discipline from a university. So any government recognized university, you have done your degree in BCom, BA, BSc, economics, BTech, whatever be your discipline. If it's a university which you have done your degree from, which is recognized by the government of India or an equivalent qualification recognized by central government, then you are eligible to write this. So it is very important aspect that people from all domain can write this exam. It is not about only commerce people can write or only science people can write, only arts people can write. Anyone from any domain can write this exam. So it really makes a good point for people who are looking to move up the professional ladder and they believe that their graduation is probably not the right professional degree that would fetch them a job. So for them, this banking job, yeah, banking industry offers a lot of good opportunity because you are from any discipline, you can write this exam. Now, this is a very important point. Those are who are in the final year or semester of their graduation may also apply. So SBI gives you that opportunity that if you have not completed your degree, but you are 20 years of age and you are into a final year of graduation or final semester, you can apply for this exam. And suppose you have to just show that at the time of document verification, you have to show that you have passed the graduation. Now, candidates having integrated dual degree certificate, so this point shows the candidate should ensure that the date of passing the IDD, जैसे integrated dual degree, is or before 16/8. Obviously, we mentioned that 16/8/2021 is the cutoff date, so that should be the cutoff date where the date of passing of the integrated dual degree is also the same, right? Now, this is again a very important test of knowledge of official or local language. See, what happens is, suppose you get qualified and for selection, if you produce 10th or 12th mark sheet, which suggests that you have studied the opted local language. Suppose you have filled the form from Gujarat, right? You can fill form from any state. If you fill, and so you need to have a 10th or 12th mark sheet wherein it says that you have done your Gujarati language, right? Suppose Punjab, so Punjabi language. So from UP it should be Hindi. So you need to produce that in 10th or 12th standard you have opted the specified local language and you have cleared that exam. Now, suppose you have, if you are qualified for selection and you don't have, you have not done your 10th and 12th in that language, there would be a language test that would be conducted. That's called language proficiency test. That is conducted because to make them understand that you know the local language to that ability that you can communicate with the people, right? So if I fill a form from Gujarat and I have not done my 10th and 12th in Gujarati language, then I need to learn the language, and before joining, that test would happen, the local language proficiency test would happen, and I need to clear that. Now, suppose you're not found proficient, suppose you lack in that proficiency test, then probably you would be disqualified. So you have to be very careful from which state you fill the form. You just can't go by the vacancies and by the cutoffs. You have to also look at that you should be able to clear the language test. So it becomes very important to understand. You just can't go and fill it from Punjab saying okay, Punjab cutoff in Punjab is less, because at the same time you have to realize that there would be a local language test that would happen after the selection and before joining. If you don't do well in that, then you would be disqualified, right? Obviously, you can always fill it from your local state. That would ensure that you have done your 10th and 12th in that exam, so that's not an issue. Now let's look at, let's spend some time on the selection process and the exam pattern. Let's look at what is the kind of selection process and if this exam has, and what is the exam pattern. Now, if you look at, first is the phase one. Now, what is phase one? Phase one is just a screening exam. See, a lot of people will apply, 2 lakh, 5 lakh people will apply. They cannot, ask everyone to come for the mains exam. They cannot ask everyone to write the mains exam. So they conduct a preliminary exam, which is the phase one, which is, we call it screening test, preliminary exam. And this exam basically consists of objective multiple choice questions. What are multiple choice questions? For every question, you would be given 5 options and you have to mark the right answer. So preliminary exam basically means they are conducting a screening kind of an exam where they will sort out people who are not eligible. They will be thrown out. Not, I'll not use the word thrown out. They would be not given an opportunity to go for the mains exam. People who qualify that exam, they will be moving forward to the mains exam. So first is the preliminary stage. Phase 2 is the mains exam, like we call is prelims and mains. Now, what is a mains exam? Mains exams is only for those people who have been selected in the prelims exam. So those people come forward and write the prelims exam. And again, it is an objective MCQ. Mind you, there is no descriptive paper that happens in SBI exam. What is a descriptive paper? You don't have to type anything. You don't have to write anything. No essays, no letters, nothing. All you have to do is mark multiple choice answer. Obviously it will require a lot of calculation and a lot of logical skills, and all that would be required, but everything is objective multiple choice question. That is the point to be remembered. There is no descriptive, there is no paper that is subjective paper that happens. It's only a multiple choice exam, both the prelims and the main stage. Now if you look at the exam pattern, exam pattern, like I said, prelims exam or this first screening exam, it's an objective test. So it consists of 100 questions. For last few years it has been the same. 100 questions are divided into three major categories: English language, numerical ability, and reasoning ability. Now if you look at the total marks, is every question is of 1 mark. So in prelims exam, every question carries the same mark, and the duration for each of this, so there is sectional timing that is in place. What is sectional timing? So you cannot have this freedom of spending more time on English or more time on reasoning or more time on numerical ability or less time on any of these topics. You have 20 minutes for each section. So student, it becomes very important for you to balance out your preparation. Suppose you are very good in, let's say, numerical ability, and you complete your 20 minutes, fatafat, you do your numerical ability in 20 minutes, fantastic. Not good in reasoning, what will you do in 20 minutes? Because you cannot spend more time in numerical ability because 20 minutes are already over. So you need to balance out your preparation, you need to maximize your score in all of this. So each question in prelims exam consists of 1 marks each. The duration for each section is 20 minutes, and the total questions is 100, right? And total marks obviously is 100, and total time is 60 minutes, right? So questions are asked in broad three categories: English, quants, which is maths, numerical ability, and reasoning ability. Now, if we look at the other salient features of prelims, is that there is no minimum cutoff marks in each set in test area, which essentially means there is sectional timing, which means you have to spend equal time in each of these sections, sure, and you cannot move freely from one section to another, but there is no minimum cutoff mark. So in many exam IBPS, you see there is minimum cutoff in each section, which means you have to clear the cutoff English, you have to clear the cutoff maths, you have to clear the cutoff reasoning, sectional cutoff as well as overall cutoff, but there is no minimum cutoff marks in SBI clerk. So suppose you didn't do well in, let's say, maths, right? You are afraid, oh, I have not done too well in maths, but if your overall score is good enough, I think you will go through the second stage. So what it says is category wise. So depending on which category you belong to, reservation or otherwise, category wise merit list will be drawn based on the aggregate marks. Aggregate means the total marks. The total marks is the basis on which the merit is drawn. The marks are not carried forward. This is a very important point. So if, let's say, in general category 70 is the cutoff in SBI clerk, so somebody who gets 85 and somebody who gets 71, they both will make it to the, let's say, to the next round, next stage, which is mains exam, and this 14 marks differential won't have any bearing on the final merit list. So marks are not carried forward. This is a very important part. Also, there is no sectional cutoff, so you have to only maximize the overall, but obviously you cannot go this from one section to another without spending equal 20 minutes in all of these sections. That is important. Now then it also says almost 10 times, approximately 10 times of the number of vacancies. So if you have 5,000 vacancies, so around 50,000 people will be shortlisted for the mains exam, right? So what happens is, so like I said, for example, 5 lakh people are writing, they cannot have everybody to write the mains exam. So 5,000 vacancy would mean approximately 50,000 or 55,000 students, they would call for the mains exam to participate in the mains exam, right? This is how they conduct the pattern. Now if you look at the mains exam criteria, now, like we said, in prelims, what happens is you have 20 minutes for each section, and you have 3 sections, total 60 minutes, and total 100 questions, and each question is a 1 mark. Now, what happens in mains exam of SBI clerk? There are 4 sections. So one more section features here is, which is general or financial awareness, which is basically your banking and general awareness section, right? Now, if you look at the areas, first is the reasoning ability, right, and computer aptitude. There are 50 questions, and then marks is 60, which means there would be few questions which would be carrying more than 1 marks. So that is called differential marking. So in prelims, as we have seen, there was only 1 marks for each question. Here there might be some questions which might carry more than 1 marks, and the time allotted is again 45 minutes. So what you realize here is, for 50 question you are given 45 minutes, right? Which means the question would be a little more lengthier, because in prelims exam you were given only 20 minutes or 35 question. Second implication of 45 minutes is very clear, that again there is sectional timing. So after 45 minutes you will have to leave the reasoning section and move to the other section. So it is very important for you to understand that once you go for the mains exam, you should be well versed with the pattern, because it becomes very important for you to understand what is my areas, which areas I have to look at, which topics I have to attempt first, because you will have only limited time. It's not possible. Suppose you are giving this section, general and financial awareness. It has 50 question. Every question is of 1 marks. Suppose you end up doing this section in 15 minutes. Either you know the answer, you don't know the answer. 50, don't have to calculate anything. You have to spend that 20 minutes sitting idle. You cannot allow. So it becomes lot of importance that you do your general and financial awareness well. Read questions carefully. Do not guess the answers, and make sure you do well in this section. Then look at general English. Again, 40 question, 40 marks. So each question is of 1 marks. And quantitative ability, 50 question, 50 marks. So only for reasoning ability you can see there is differential marking. For every other section there is one question, 1 marks. And if you look at the sectional timings is 45 minutes for reasoning, 35 minutes for general and financial awareness, which is a little too much for that section. General English 35 minutes, quantitative ability 45 minutes. So total, if you look at the whole pattern, it is 2 hours and 40 minutes, which is approximately 160 minutes for 190 questions. In total, maximum marks is 200. Right? So this is the general pattern of SBI clerk mains exam. And see, most of the mains exams are generally from 2 hours 20 minutes to 2 hours 40 minutes, 3 hours, approximately the same time. And there is differential marking in many exams which happens, like in this exam also there is differential marking for reasoning section, while the other sections are the same. Right? So this is the mains pattern. So now you realize the difference between prelims and mains. Prelims is just 1 hour exam, right? 3 sections, 20 minutes burst each section, and 35, 35, and 30 questions. But in mains exam, it is almost 3 times the timing of the prelims exam. So this will test you on many factors. It will test you on fatigue. It will test you on your ability to solve different areas with lot more concepts and lot more lengthier questions. So everything is different in the mains exam. You cannot, it's chalk and cheese, mains and prelims exam, because mains exam preparation needs a different kind of, awareness and different kind of strategy. So you have to be very careful when we say you have to prepare for exam. You have to be very careful how you chalk out that strategy. And like I said, every strategy is different for every person. Now, if you look at so again, like in preliminary exam, there was no minimum cutoff in any section in preliminary exam. Similarly, in the mains exam also, there is no minimum cutoff areas in each section. So you might end up doing very badly in general awareness or banking awareness. But if you happen to do well in other section areas, they might see you through, right? So others, if you do good in overall score, then your sectional score or sectional cutoff doesn't matter here. So in many exams, sectional cutoffs matter, but in SBI clerk, there is no sectional cutoff neither in prelims, neither in mains. But there is sectional timing. So sectional timing would mean you cannot spend all your time in one section. You have to distribute the time according to the time that they have given. So if they say 45 minutes for reasoning and 35 minutes for general awareness and 30 minutes, 35 minutes for English, so that's how it will. Again, candidates are required to score a minimum percentage marks on aggregate. So they have to score a minimum marks, which is a cutoff that would be decided by the bank based on their all algorithms and their permutation combination and how many students they want to call for the mains exam. So that is dependent on that. So you have to score that kind of marks so that you clear the cutoffs, right? And only the aggregate cutoffs you have to clear. Aggregate means the total cutoffs. It's not asking you to clear the sectional cutoff. So that is a very important differentiator. So even if you do not do well in one section, or you have a fear that my one section would spoil it everything, you can maximize in other section and kind of compensate for the that section that doesn't go well. So there is no minimum cutoff marks in the each section, but there is obviously an aggregate total marks or the cutoff mark that you need to get and clear the cutoffs. Only then you would be eligible for the further selection. Now, the marks, so again, the marks obtained in the preliminary exam will not be added for the second. Like I said, there is no carry forward of the marks. In SSC Tier 1 exam, what happens? The marks gets carried forward. But in the prelims exam of banking sector, the marks in the prelims exams are not carried forward. So like I said, if there is a cutoff of 70 and somebody gets 70, exact 70, and somebody get 90, that 20 marks difference would not create any problem, right? And only the aggregate marks obtained in the mains exam. So whatever you score in the mains exam, that will have a bearing in the final merit list, right? And obviously, your whole score would depend on the mains exam. So if you happen to suppose somebody does prelims badly but clears just by cut off by 1 mark, but he happens to do good in mains exam, then every chance of making to the final merit list. So mains exam is very important for the final merit list. The aggregate marks scored will have a lot of bearing on the whole selection. So again, negative marking, and we have rightly marked it with a lot of red, right? Why? Because it's a very commonplace for person who are writing the exams, that they see multiple choice question, they start answering like A, B, C, D, whatever they feel like. There is negative marking. You cannot on your whims and fancies mark anything. Okay, going by the hunch. There is no hunch for a successful candidate. He doesn't go by hunch. So you have to be very careful of the negative marking. Suppose you happen to do well in some section, and you end up spoiling it by some having some questions as negative. So there is negative marking, and that negative marking should be dealt with. So there is penalty for wrong answer. So in both prelims exam and in mains exam, there is penalty for wrong answer. So that penalty is generally 0.25 of the marks assigned to that question. What does this mean? So if you happen to, like I said, in prelims exam, every question is of 1 mark. So if you do any question wrong, you will get negative 0.25, because that is 25% of the maximum marks. Now in mains exam, like we said, there is reasoning section where there might be some question which is of 2 marks. So for that question, if you do it wrong, if you do it right, you get 2 marks. But at the same time, if you happen to do it wrong, then you get negative of 0.5. Why negative of 0.5? Because that is 25% of 2 marks. So like it says, every wrong answer we get negative 0.25 of the marks assigned to that question. So most of the question in SBI exam would be 1 marks, so negative 0.25. But suppose in reasoning section, like we said, there is a differential marking, and there might be some question which is of 2 marks, then you would get a negative of 0.5, because that is 25% of 2. Right. So what happens if you leave a question blank? What happens if you don't mark an answer? What happens if you leave a question unanswered? No, there is no hassle in that. You can obviously afford to leave an answer alone by itself. What it means is, if you don't answer a question, there is nothing that gets deducted. There is no negative that happens. So it is always advisable, students, to make sure that you first you prepare well, so that you can answer most of the question. And suppose you don't know the answer, then don't please guess. Don't do guesswork. Lot of students make this bad mistake of thinking that, oh, general awareness section, I know this answer, this is, I'm going by hunch. Don't go by hunch, because it might create a problem and you might not clear the mains. Who knows, you might have done very well in other section, but because of the negative marking in one of the section, maybe GA, that can create a lot of problem for you. So you have to be very careful. There is negative marking. You can always afford to leave a question. Leaving a question won't carry any negative marks, and you will not get any penalty for that question. So you have to ensure that you do it with a lot of accuracy. Now, let's look at also on this objective. I'm sure many of you would have already applied to SBI Club, but for now, new people who are just starting off their preparation, how to apply for SBI Club? Now you can apply online only. Everything is online right now. The situation of COVID is such that anyways exam is also online. So there is no other mode of application that is available. You have to apply it online. If you have any problems in applying online, you can always get in touch with the time center in your vicinity, or you can call up any of your friends or somebody who can guide you towards that. Now, so how do you do that? So there is a website which is as bank.sbi careers. You can log into that. This is the website address, and then you can click on recruitment of junior associate. So in bank they don't call it, in SBI they don't call it clerks. They call it's at JA, which is junior associate. After registration, you are required to fill the requisite application fee through online mode by using debit card, credit card, or internet banking. So you have to basically use it through all cashless means, which means you have to uh, do digital transaction either using your debit card, credit card, or internet banking. Only then you would be eligible to pay the fees online. So when you go to that website, you register yourself, fill in all the details, and then you make payment to online, right? So what is the prerequisite? What is the requirements for applying online? So you have to make sure you look at the notification clearly and look at the what is the size and the dimension mentioned in notification. They would ideally give you what is the size and the dimensions and the JPG file that you have to upload of the documents, everything. You have to be very careful of that. So scan or photograph. Obviously, you need to scan your photograph and put it on the form, and then signature. Again, this is our digital signature we are talking of. A valid email ID and mobile number. So it's very important. All your further communication will happen on that email. If you get selected also, you'll get an email. You have to have a valid email which is a functional email. Don't give an email which is obsolete, which you're not using anymore. And mobile number, and try and not change your mobile number too often, because all your OTPs and all your any messages, change of center or anything for that matter, result declaration, anything that will happen only on your given correspondence points, which is like mobile or email ID. What is the application fees and the intimation charges? So for general category, economically weaker section, EWS and other backward classes, OBC, this is 750. So SBI clerk exam requires you to pay 750 rupees for if you're belonging to these categories. And for SC, ST and uh, people with disabilities and all of those candidates, it's nil. Nil means it's free for all of those people who uh, who falls in that category. And for the other categories like general, EWS and OBC, it's 750 rupees, 750. Now, so like we said, this is about your how to apply and what are the last dates and what is the exam pattern and what is the selection process like and how you move up the ladder. That all we have discussed. What is required to be discussed very importantly is how do you prepare? What should be your preparation strategy? What is the topic that you need to focus upon? You need to understand there would be topics which are important from particular stage point of view. There are topics, and you need to understand what is the kind of break. Important भी हम किसको बोलते हैं? What topic do we call as important? A topic is called as important as the number of questions appear. So we need to be very clear and judicious about which topics we need to master well. And suppose somebody comes and says, I know reasoning well, I know maths well, I know English well. Only reasoning one section I don't know, which is puzzles. Puzzles I don't want to do. I don't like doing puzzles. Boss, if you look at the topic wise breakup, you would find there is a lot of puzzles that come in both the prelims and the mains exam. And if you think that you can, pass this exam without puzzle, then it is very difficult. So you need to understand that if you know the topic wise breakup, then you can plan your strategy accordingly. There would be section where you would be doing really well. There would be section you would be doing moderately well. There would be section you would not be doing well. So you have to understand, if you're not doing well in a section which doesn't appear that much, then you're in a safe territory. But if you're doing very well in a section which does not appear, then also you are not in a safe territory. So you have to understand, you need to focus on what are the areas and where I need to focus more. What where am I gonna get my marks in the prelims and the mains exam? Where are my go-to areas? That only comes through analyzing of the topics, right? And this is all data which is presented to you so that you can use it readily. This is presented because for you to understand how you don't have to, go to many websites. This is all collected and presented to you. Now, this is the kind of snapshot that you have made. SBI clerk and main exam, it gives about reasoning section. Now, like I was saying of puzzles, if you look at puzzles, what chance on earth do you have if we are expecting 11 to 24? Let's take an average also, 17, 18, 18, 19. Out of 35 question in prelims in reasoning, if 18 or 20 question are from puzzles, there is no way on earth you can avoid puzzles, right? If you look at a mains exam, it increases to 20 to 30. right? So on an average, 25 to 27 questions on puzzle. So puzzle any day would form approximately 50 or 55% of the total questions. So you cannot afford to leave out puzzles, right? Similarly, look at blood relation. It's appearing in prelims, it is also appearing in mains. So it might happen that in mains the difficulty level is a bit a little up, but it will appear. The basic concepts would appear in both. Same look at direction sense. It is appearing in prelims. It is again appearing in mains. So these are some of the topics you need to be very careful. Symbol and notation inequality. See, 2 to 5 question and 4 to 5 question in mains. So again, these are topics where you need to be very focused upon. Now look at some of these topics like ranking and sequence, digit and letter sequence and symbol sequence. These are the topics which uh, of late have not been appearing in mains exam because they are easier topic. And like I said, in prelims exam you do not have time. The student would have to do a lot of questions, but those will be easier questions. So these questions come in the easier category. So they appear only in the prelims. They don't appear in the mains exam. So like they are appearing only in prelims and not in the mains exam, there would be some topics would appear only in the mains exam and not appear in the prelims exam. So that is what I'm saying. So right now, if you're preparing for prelims exam, your focus should be on these topics as well because these are the easier topics. Now look at set of numbers and words. Again, they are important from prelims point of view. Alphanumeric series generally doesn't appear, but you can expect 0 to 1 question in mains. Generally, it doesn't appear. So this really gives you a snapshot. So you can really make out what are those topics that will give you the maximum plenty of. These are the first 4 or 5 topics that will give you the maximum marks in both prelims and the mains exam. Now deductions against syllogism that we call as syllogism, they appear mainly in prelims, right? Mains generally it is not seen. If even if they will be seen, a few new models would be seen. Input output, again prelims they might come, they might not come, but main surely 5 questions you can expect. Miscellaneous, again 1 to 3 questions. Data sufficiency, generally in prelims it will come, it will be of easier level, but in mains it will be difficult. Critical reasoning, 5 to 8 question. This will never come in prelim because this will include lot of reading of data. It will require a lot of time. So that time you do not have in the prelims exam. So critical reasoning is one section, and also input output. I believe that you are seeing mainly in the mains exam and not in the prelims exam. And you cannot afford to not prepare for critical reasoning and wait for clearing your prelims and then going for me. So you have to prepare simultaneously for the mains exam as well. Obviously your focus should be on the prelims exam primarily, but you have to realize that you cannot just wait for the exam result to come, because generally there are not enough days between prelims and the mains exam. So your focus should be that by after preparing your basics for prelims exam, you also try and give some mocks of mains exam so that you can understand what is the kind of fatigue level, what is the kind of application that it requires, right? So this gives you a basic idea of the question topic wise of reasoning section. So what are those important topics if you can recollect? So important topics are puzzle, blood relation, direction sense, symbol notation from the prelims and the from mains point of view. There are some couple of topics which are important from the prelims point of view, which is ranking and sequences, and there are some topics which are important from mains point of view, which is critical reasoning, and baki topics appear randomly in both the sides. Now, so what is our summary for reasoning? This is for SBI PO or SBI clerk, we can always say that. So there are some topics which are important for both prelims and mains: puzzle, coding, decoding, input and output. There are some topics which are important for prelims only, but you cannot neglect it for the mains exam. Like I said, symbol and notation, blood relation, directions and syllogism, they all appear mainly in the prelims because these are easier topics. Now in mains they might come, they might not come, right? So but puzzles, coding, decoding and input output, they are important boss from both prelims and mains point of view. Now then, like I said, there would be some topics which are important from mains point of view, which are data sufficiency, critical reasoning and decision making. So these are topics which generally you won't see they will feature in the prelims exam, they will only come in the mains exam. So this you have to remember. Now, what is the strategy and tips and what is the right order of attempting this section? So first and foremost, prelims and mains, how you approach this. First and foremost, you should do analytical listening. What is analytical listening? Odd man out, coding, decoding, directions, and blood relation. Because these are easier questions to attempt and these are only standalone question. It will not take much of your time. After that, you should go for symbol and notation questions, right? And see, this priority order has been designed after a lot of feedback from the students, from our experience. So analytical reasoning first, followed by symbol notation, Then go for input, output, and decision making. Now these are obviously important from mains point of view, but you cannot neglect it from. Then deductions, if they are given, then go for deduction. Puzzles, then because puzzles will form the lion's share in the both the prelims and the main exam, which means they would appear in lot of numbers. So you cannot afford to put puzzles completely at the last. Then you should also look at data sufficiency questions, which is important for mains. Critical reasoning, all of these should be attempted at last. Non-verbal reasoning generally has not appeared for last few years, but data sufficiency and critical reasoning should always be kept at the last, and they will appear only in the mains exam. So you will try and keep data sufficiency and critical reasoning at the last. Like I said, you should, what are the don'ts? You should never start with critical reasoning questions. This is very important because you will get puzzled up. You might get confused, and you might lose the confidence and the motivation. So never start with critical reasoning questions. Try and attempt set based questions first. That can give you like 3 or 4 marks in totality. Then important topics like coding, decoding, blood relation, symbol notation, direction saying, puzzles, deduction, input. These are the important topics. So critical reasoning, like we said, sometimes the weightage is less, sometimes the weightage is low. Puzzles, obviously, it has more weightage. Now, what is critical reasoning actually? So yes, we have also given some pointers on critical reasoning. Critical reasoning means you have to find the assumptions, conclusion, and inferences. You have been given a statement. You have to find what is the assumption in that, or what does author want to conclude. Strong and weak arguments and courses of action. So these are all things that are covered in critical reasoning. These are some of the very important chapters in critical. Now, how do you prepare logical reasoning ability section? You need to have very good logical skills. So try and solve a lot of logical arrangements, and try and solve a lot of question based on LR. Only then your skills would get improved. Now, obviously, it requires understanding and implementing the given instructions. So, like in question like symbol notation, coding, decoding, you need to understand what the examiner is asking you. You need to carefully understand it and implement the instruction that have been provided to you. Now, in analytical puzzles, like I said, it covers around 50 to 60, 55% of the whole total number of questions. Cannot afford to neglect it. You should try and solve at least 2, 3 puzzles a day. Maybe easier level, difficult level, that is up to you. But you need to keep it yourself in the loop, in the continuity. Now, so there would be a lot of clues that are given. So once you start solving puzzle, you will find those clues and do logical analysis. Like in arrangement, we say 6 to the right of left, third to the right of B, at the extreme ends. What does that mean, and how do you apply those all of these clues to find out the logical order? Now, practicing, obviously, practice always helps. So if you practice a lot of puzzles, it will really help. Again, coding, decoding, and input output, focus on identifying logics that are, so there would be coding and decoding and input output, that kind of topics where you have to find a pattern to it. You have to relate things, and you have to see something that is not given. You have to relate things, how you can relate with the given question. So once you do that, you would probably do well in these sections also. So try and solve as many questions as possible. That is self-explanatory. Now, obviously, direction sense and family relations. This is something that you would have done all your life as well. So you need to understand what are the basics concept in both of these sections as well. Now, inequalities or symbol notation. Generally, these are easier questions, right? You understand it clearly, and it is not difficult to decipher the information. So please understand, student, it is a scoring area. There is something, these are marks, definitely you can have them easily, but do not make mistakes in haste. Do not get into that habit of making silly mistakes in this. Critical reasoning, obviously it requires a lot of good language skills. So if you feel that your language skills are not adequate, my suggestion would be, do not start with it. Do not spend too much time on it. Keep it for the last. If everything else is done and you feel like you have still time left, then probably you can go for it. So in reasoning, what happens is, generally you coding, decoding, or input output you are doing, you will get an answer, and that answer would kind of tally with the options given. But in critical reasoning, what happens is, every answer option, or most of the answer option, will be close to each other. Like, what is the argument, what is the assumption, what is the conclusion, what is the course of action. So it is very difficult, at times, for students to decipher which is the right option. So again, this basically means options are confusing. So you need to be very clear about that. Now, if you look at the quants and DI section, now again, prelims and mains, we spoke about the reasoning section. Now we're looking at quants and DI. So quadratic comparison. What are quadratic comparison? You are given two quadratic equation in x and y, and you need to compare the values of x and with the values of y. That is quadratic comparison. Generally, you can expect question in prelims. Simplification definitely. Approximation will come only in prelims. Simplification approximation prelims में ही आता है. It will never appear in mains. Sometime it might appear with one or two questions, but generally it doesn't. Series you can expect in prelims. Mains also you can expect 0 to 5 questions, which means one or two question here or there. Then you have individual quant question that we call miscellaneous question, that is arithmetic and all of those things. Generally in prelims you will get 5 to 12 questions. In mains you will get 10 to 17 questions. Now, like in reasoning, puzzles was taking the most of the share. If you look at data interpretation is one section which takes the cake in the mains exam of quants. So in the main exams of in the quants exam, in the quant section in the mains exam, you would see almost 50% question coming from data interpretation. So data interpretation means basically you are given some graphs, some information, and then you have to calculate some values on the basis of that. Data sufficiency, like in reasoning, it will appear mainly in mains. Again, data comparison. This is a new thing that has come up in the last 2 3 years. So you are given two sets of data and you have to compare which quantity is greater. So that will appear mainly in the mains exam, right? So this gives you a brief snapshot. Individual quant question generally means the arithmetic questions. So what are those topics which are important for both prelims and mains? Like I said, DI, series, arithmetic topics. Arithmetic topics are ERPV. What is ERPV? Equation, ratio, proportion, variation. Partnership, profit and loss, which is PPL. TW is time and work, time and distance, geometry, mensuration, average. All of these topics are important from both prelims and mains point of view. There are some topics which are generally appearing, like we said, only in the prelim, which are simplification, approximation, quadratic comparison. That we already discussed. So simplification is a simple question, right? Approximation, quadratic comparison. Obviously, you will not find in mains exam where you have a lot of time at your hand. So in mains exam, generally the question, like in reasoning, there would be difficult puzzle. Like in maths, there would be lengthier question. There would be questions which are involving lot of concept rather than speed. And simplification approximation generally are those topics which requires a lot of speed. So generally that happens in the screening stage or the prelim stage. Now there are some questions which are important from some areas which are important from mains perspective only. Like I said, data sufficiency, data comparison, and quant based DI. What is quant based DI? So now of late they have started with data interpretation involving the arithmetic topics. That is called as quant based DI. Again, see, it is will be a lengthier thing. It will be involving a lot of values, so it will take a lot of time. So anything that is lengthy, anything that requires a lot of time would appear only in the mains exam and not prelims. Same applies to data sufficiency and data comparison. So data sufficiency, data comparison, and quant based DI you can expect in the mains exam and not in the prelims exam. But yes, arithmetic series and all of DI, especially you can expect in both prelims and mains. And then there are simplification, which only in the prelims. Now, what is the strategy and tips for quant and DI? First and foremost is for always start with simplification, approximation, and missing series. These are the easiest question to attempt, easiest questions, right? That will give you a lot of confidence going forward. See, in exam you would have limited time, so whatever you can eat and eat it fast, then that makes a lot of sense. So go for simplification, approximation, missing series. Then quadratic comparison. So quadratic comparison generally is a mixed bag. Out of 4 or 5 you will have 3 which are easier and 2 are tough. So try and solve which are easier. Don't spend too much time on solving the difficult. You might end up doing easier question in the other subtopics, right? Then you will have individual quant question, like we call as miscellaneous question, time and work, time and distance, profit and loss, probability, mensuration, ages. Then go for data sufficiency and data comparison, but these are generally topping in mains exams, right? uh, Again, selection of sets in DI. So generally in prelims exam you get 2 sets of DI, and the main exam you get approximately 4 to 5 sets. So it becomes very important for you to attempt the right set. Now suppose you have picked up a set, you have choose a set, and it might happen it has 5 questions and 4 are very easy and you end up doing in 3 minutes. And for the fifth question you end up doing taking 4 minutes. It is not worth it. It is not worth it because ultimately those 4 minutes you can then 3 or 4 more questions. So you have to realize this, sir, that you when you choose a set you are not bound to do all the question in that set. Do whatever is easier. Like we say, there is a concept of low hanging fruits. Whatever you get easily you take it and move ahead, because you have limited time, you have to maximize your score. Generally it is seen that caselet is a lengthier thing, so you can always leave caselet. Now, like I said, selection of question in each DI set. Now, this is also very important aspect. Like You don't have the obligation to finishing all the questions in the DI set. Even if you end up doing 5 or 7, if you end up doing 5 out of 6 or 3 out of 5, good enough. Move ahead. See, we have to be very calculative what I know and what I do not know. Lot of people make this have this habit of taking it to ego. Oh, why can't I solve it? I will solve it. It's not about your ego. It's about seeing that if I have solved 4 questions out of 5 in 3 minutes, and that one question is taking me 3 minutes, I'll spend those 3 minutes somewhere else and end up solving 4 more questions. So my output would be 4 times. So you have to be very careful and judicious. So like I said, this is an exam. Any aptitude exam is also a test of your decision making skills. It is not just their what will they help, what help will they get in, in your DI, in your banking job. You will always have calculator and laptops. They are checking, are you sensible enough to make sure this I know and this I do not know? Can you make the judgment? Can you are you a logical person, saying that okay? They are testing your personality. They are testing, are you a rigid person who cannot just or who is a flexible person? So they are looking at flexibility. They are looking at thinking on the at the right point, thinking on the feet. So they are looking at people who are proactive in terms of decision making. So I think that is important. So for me, an aptitude exam just not test you on your knowledge skills, it tests you on your various personality traits like decision making, stress management, uh, handling pressure, all of these things. Now, so there might be some DI set, the data might look complicated, but the answer is simple. So they might try to confuse you, and there would be some that the data would look easier, but the answers questions would be very difficult. So you have to be very careful and judicial. Like I said, वहाँ पे आपको decide करना, you have to be very pinpointing and very clear about, okay boss, this I know and this I do not know. Once you are sure that I know this and that will come with when you write a lot of mocks. We'll discuss about mocks later on, but sure. Uh, Use approximation wherever suitable. Now, one mistake which I see a lot of our students also do, they have not come out of the school mold. School mold is where you have to do all the question by step, all you have to show all these steps, you have to solve it completely. No, use options. Always use options. Try and see if you can approximate an answer and get to. You don't have to do it subjectively. You don't have to write and submit a copy. You just have to tick the right answer. You just mark the right answer. So please use approximation. Make sure you are working towards that orientation, that you challenge yourself. What is the easiest way to do these questions? There might be a longer way, there might be a shorter way. You should always choose the shorter way, optimum solution that really helps you to move forward. So like I said, use approximation wherever suitable. At the same time, during practice also, you should have this habit of uh, trying to do everything time bound. You should not uh, do your studies like I'll sit for 4 hours, but you end up doing only 20 questions. It's better you sit for 1 hour and give yourself 20 questions and see how many have you done. Because that pressure, when you will do in practice, that will also translate in your main exams. Right. Let's look at some other points. So, what is the kind of yeah? So this is my favorite because I take quantitative ability and I'm pretty enthusiastic about quants, how you should prepare quants. Multiplication tables. Now many of you say, what is this? Why do we need to know multiplication table? I can find out. Boss, my first class is always about, do you know what is 7 into 9? Everybody says 63. Then I ask them, what is 18 into 7? So if you know 9 into 7, how do you also know 18 into 7 in the same breath? If you do not know, then you are mistaken that you know your tables. You need to know your tables very clearly. Once you know your tables, then your calculation approximation becomes easier. Squares and cubes. We generally focus, you should know your squares and cubes, squares up to 25. And then we do a lot of speed maths exercises where we kind of give an idea of how you can find squares up to 200 also, and cubes obviously up to 20. Then reciprocal values are like 1 by 1 and 1 by 2, and that convert to percentage and fractions. Complements of 100, which means 62, complement of 62, 100 complement of 62 is 32 38, which is 100 minus that number. 71 का क्या होगा 29, 48 का क्या होगा 52, 51 का क्या होगा 49. All of these complements of 100. अब ये कोई nobody can teach this. Trust me, this is your motivation. If you have the habit, nahi, I'll try and find it. We are not challenging that you cannot find 100 minus 62. No, We are saying you have limited time. In limited time, how much will you multiply and how much will you subtract and how much will you add? So you need to go there with a lot of arsenal. You need to go there with a lot of preparation beforehand. You need to go there with everything here, top of mind. If you have everything here and you have to fetch it from here, it will take a lot of time and the other person will go off. So you have to understand, I'm not saying you cannot find 19 into 7, but do you know 19 into 7 is this number, as you know 4 into 7. If you know 4 into 7 is 28, you should also know that 19 into 7 is 133. So it should be that prompt. So percentage calculation, obviously, this is again a very important aspect. When you join time, you would know that how we go about the whole thing. Quadratic comparison, finding roots, again you should know your roots. Yeah, so thorough with basic concepts. So you have to be very thorough with the concepts of arithmetic. That is very much required, because it will also help in solving data sufficiency and data comparison. So data comparison question basically, or data sufficiency questions, are basically based on the arithmetic concepts. Those arithmetic concepts get used and they are checking you, do you understand what you understand by data sufficiency. So basically they are based and modeled on the arithmetic. So once you know your arithmetic, then probably these section will also work out. Right. Also we'll spend some time on the English language thing. Now if you look at English language, generally RC is something that is major focus. What is reading comprehension? Reading comprehension, you're given a passage and based on that you're asked some questions. Now RC section in banking exam has generally seen a quite a change, and it has become a reasonably a little tougher section. I'll not say it is very tough as compared to CAT, but it is relatively tougher section. It has a lot of weightage also. So you need to improve your reading skills. That how you can do it. You can use your improve your reading skills by reading a lot of newspapers and magazine. That will give you advantage in your vocabulary. That will give you advantage in your grammar. That will give you advantage in your diction. That will also give you an advantage in your general awareness. So try and read English newspapers. That will help you. Now, closed test, again, these are easier, that generally appear in the prelims exam, not in the mains exam. Para formation question, again, prelims and mains, you can expect some questions. Then sentence reordering or jumbling, again, in both. So there are some topics which appear in both the prelims and the main exam in the English section. And there are some topics like synonym, antonyms, and idiom phrases. Generally, they come in the mains exam and not in the prelims. Like word usage, word interchange, word replacement, they only come in the mains exam. Some wrong spellings also come in the prelims exam but not in the mains exam. Then phrase replacement and error identification. Generally error identification is something that is your based on your grammar. So you need to know your grammar well, because these are 5 to 10 question. And वहाँ पे exam में what happens is you feel this is also right, this is also right, this is also right. So you need to know your rules. You need to know your rules, grammar rules very correctly, and also how to apply those rules, right? So if I run through this section, so some topics which are important for both prelims and mains. What are those? Reading comprehension, parajumble sentences, filling the blanks, and grammar. So these are sections which these are the topics which you will see in both prelims exams and the mains exam. There are some topics like closed test, match the column, sentence starters, word usage. These are only from the prelims point of view. Now there are some topics which may require a lot of reading, like para formation, odd one out, para formation question, odd one out, para completion, theme of passage, multiple errors. These are questions which appear only in mains. Generally they are seen only in mains because in prelims you don't have too much time. So these questions will require you to solve in some time. So they will generally appear in the mains exam. What are those topics? Para formation, para completion, theme of passage. So you are given a passage and you have to find what is the right theme. So you have to read the passage 5 lines, 6 lines, 7 lines, and then come to a topic, the theme that you can derive out of it. So that will take time. So multiple errors. It's not a single error identification. There can be multiple errors. You have to be very careful with that. Again, that will take a lot of time. So these questions generally appear in mains. So what should be the right strategy for English language? You should start with the closed phrases. Start with the closed phrases because these are the easiest. You can relate the terms and you can find the answers. Then filling the blanks again. Then RC should be attempted, and especially RCs, there would be some question based on the vocab. So those would be easier question. Then grammar, and then para formation question, and then para completion. So all of para formation question and para completion and theme of passage, these are the questions that appear only in the mains exam, and they should be attempted at the last, because generally there are chances that you will mark incorrectly, because these are very the options are pretty close. So focus on vocab improvement. See, you have to understand there is a lot of synonym antonyms, there is a lot of filling the blank, close test. All of these, these are really big marks. You know why? Because very many students come and say, sir, how many words can we learn, and how do we know that this word will come or not? See, even if four words come out of 4,000 words that you have learned, four words would mean 4 marks, right? And if you don't know the answers of those 4 words, then they will mean 0 marks. So 4 marks can change your fortune. So trust me, you have to improve your vocab. Any given day, you have to try and improve your vocab. Read a lot of stuff. Um, uh, Cram the vocabulary, new words along with the usage. Look at the last year question papers. See more important, which are the words which are more important. Practice and implement in vocab based question. Reading competition, again, read and read is very important. And especially because this is a banking exam, especially focus on banking and banking related passages, right? uh, you can try and try different strategies like we teach in class, skimming, skimming strategies, skimming the passage. So you have to make sure you increase your reading speed, and that will come. See, English reading speed will improve. Also your concentration will improve, your comprehension will also improve once you get into reading. When you are starting reading for the first time, then it might happen, focusing 10 minutes also is a challenge. But once you start reading and you read for like half an hour every day and increase it to 45 minutes, then you realize that these passages won't require much of your attention, also you can solve them easily. Grammar, do not just by heart rules. So do not go by this notion that I'll remember the rules and that will help me, right? The rules have to be applied. So you have to remember the rules as well as the examples relating those rules and how you apply those rules, and that will come through a lot of practice. So practical application of these rules is very important. Like I said, if you don't apply those rules, if you don't see what are the exceptions to those rules and when can this be applied, only when you see a lot of questions come your way, when you saw a lot of questions, only then you get a clarity on how to apply those rules. Now, if you look at the fourth section, which appears only in the mains exam and not in the prelims exam, generally the most neglected section, but for me, this is the game changer. This is a game changer because it will never require all the 30 or 40 minutes allotted to it. You will end up doing it very well if you know the answers, or you will end up doing it messing it up. Why? Because this is a section which generally students ignore till the end of, when the results are declared for the prelims exam, and they have their 15-20 days, and if you, oh my God, I have not prepared my GA. You need to start your preparation of GA from today itself. Make sure you give half an hour, 40 minutes every day to GA. This will help you. Maybe you will forget everything in 40 days, 45 days when the mains exam comes. But when in the last 15 days you are preparing for the mains exam, all you have to do is revise. So that will help you. Everything will come back. So make sure you start your preparation early, right? So you have to make sure you read all the So definition, abbreviations, and topics of Indian economy and banking definitely is very much required, because that gives you a lot of information on things. Then events which appear repeatedly in news, again, these should also be focused upon. You can for computer knowledge, you can go for Kiran publication. We give a lot of emphasis on material that we provide by time, and you can always look at the previous question. Generally, latest computer terminology is something that you need to be aware of. Generally, it's seen that computer questions are not appearing, but still you cannot totally neglect it. You have to prepare for it. So you can use either of these material, maybe print publication or maybe time provided material by the time. Now, what should be preparation plan? Go steady pace your preparation, which means you have to understand how many hours you need to complete a lot of topics. There are a lot of topics in each section, and you have to focus on these topics. You just cannot, try and be unaware of things. You have to understand there are topics that needs your time, and you need. Suppose somebody might give 4 hours, somebody might give 8 hours. That depends on number of hours may not be the criteria again, but if you have a lot of preparation, to start and trying to pace your, you can start early and start planning your preparation, how you want to approach these topics. So you might want to distribute 2 hours for maths and 2 hours for reasoning and 2 hours for English, or maybe 1 hour for English and likewise. So you have to see according to your strength and weaknesses, what are your areas of strength and what are your areas of weaknesses. Based on that, you need to apply yourself. Start focus on building concept. First you have to build concept, and that is only through one thing, that is practice, practice, practice. 3 P's, right? Why? Because once you start practicing a lot of questions, then you realize, students, that concepts will come. And what will happen is, once your concepts are clear, then uh, your practice will help you to solve a lot of different questions. That will give you confidence, as well as that will give you different ways of solving the question. That will eventually save time, and you will end up doing more question would mean more marks. Now, we provide study material booklets and sectional tests, so you can always, after doing concept, you can always solve those. Identify your strong and weakness areas. Like I said, it is very important to identify what are your strong and weak areas and act accordingly. Somebody might have a reasoning section weak, somebody might have a math section weak, somebody might have an English section weak. You have to understand there is no sectional cutoffs, so you can maximize your score in other section, but at the same time, the 20 minutes or the sectional timing that has been allotted for the section which you do not like to do, that again you need to take care of, so that you can consolidate on that, right? Now, done with basics. Once you're done with the basic, focus on building speed. Write mocks. So this is very important, student. Please focus on writing lot of mocks and do analysis of those mocks. Many students fail to do the analysis. Analysis means you need to, after writing a mock, you need to understand where I could have maximized. My decision of doing this question was wrong or right, because I end up spending this much time. So at time, the kind of mock practice that we give, we also give how many minutes or seconds you have taken for a question, and how much the topper has taken. That gives you a real-time idea how you look at solution. You can ask your mentors and faculties, is there any other way of doing this? Can we do it from option? Can there be a good solution to this? So when you write mock and analyze those mock, only that helps you to improve your performance. Attend revision workshop classes, be result oriented. So do not sit with this attitude, I have a lot of time. Sit with this attitude that I have, okay, this is the deadline I've set for myself. Understand the pattern, understand the weightage of the question, understand which questions are important from which stage of the exam, and hence act accordingly. Look at the new question types that have appeared in the last few years. Also look at the last year question paper. That will give you an idea of the pattern of the paper, because that also gives you kind of start on how you can approach this. uh, this is very important. These are the two game changers. Like I said, vocabulary and GA, these are the easy marks, approximately 40 questions in GA. These are the easier marks. If you can score out of 40 out of 30, you can score, that's fantastic. And without doing a lot of negatives, that can really help you. Same with vocabulary, around 10 to 12 questions you will get. If you can attempt those questions, you will save a lot of time and maximize your score. Now, at time we provide online classes, and these online classes are uh, right. So this is the snapshot of the classes that we offer, and this is right now is the COVID is going on. So we offer a 6 months course, online course, which is priced like this, and the number of classes which have been mentioned. So for SBI clerk and IBPS clerk 2000, this is the detail. We also provide sectional test as well as full length sectional test. And this student can opt for 6 months course, but he gets it for 12 months, right? So there is some e-booklets that you also get, and the validity of videos is 6 months. So there's also a lot of live online classes which are provided by various centers. You can also approach your nearest center and ask for those classes. So that will also be a good head start. Right. So that's it from my side. Any questions that we may have, I will take them right now. Right. Thank you so much, students. Thank you for your time and all the very best. Stay safe, stay home, and all the best for the exam.